Good to be here. Okay, and here we go. So we're going to jump right into our new mobile duress locating platform. And as soon as I can get this to advance, here we go. Okay, so the application here is we're talking about duress alarm signaling in large job sites where physical response time is time sensitive. We're talking about multiple floor buildings, multiple building job sites. And the key here is risk mitigation surrounding a duress alarm event. And the key is the way to mitigate risk is to get a response to show up as soon as possible. And in the life of an alarm, and we've talked about this in the past, it's detect, delay, respond. Detect means when the alarm signal is communicated and ideally verified or assessed. Delay is when that time occurs to when the adversary reaches their objective. And then response is how long it takes for somebody to arrive and neutralize that adversary. And we always want response time to be as short as possible. So in these larger job sites, when somebody hits their panic button, this is classic risk mitigation to get somebody to that location as quickly as possible. So what we are doing with our new mobile duress platform is we're giving you floor and room level location upon the button press of the Inovonics pendant. And this is a cloud hosted system. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about cloud hosted software as a service as well. But we are going to deliver that alarm identity and where they are to a central station, which by definition nowadays is also cloud because that's all IP connectivity, or an on-premise access control or other integration of an IP-based platform. And I'll show you what integrations we have as well as a path for new integrations being created. So again, the whole name of the game here is directing response in a timely manner. I've been with Inovonics for 27 years, and I'll talk a little bit about our past locating methodologies. Locating is not a new concept to Inovonics. I want to make sure and tell you about that. But as far as the locator capabilities, I would say this one is the most accurate overall and also the most overall cost effective. So we'll talk about that. We also, in addition to our gateway that goes to our server, we do like to see an alarm panel on site to not only supervise the pendants on-prem, but also to process the initial alarm immediately, non-located, but that will ready the responders to jump into action, and then the locating will follow. All right, so let's continue here. The end user prospects, we're talking about a large facility, employees who are in harm's way potentially. I call that facing some degree of threat likelihood, who can be anywhere at any time. So obviously schools are on everyone's mind, staff and teachers, healthcare environments, behavioral health, staff at hospitals. Think about a high-rise hospital where there's doctors, nurses, medical technicians, government buildings, judges, municipality environments, things like that. Lone workers in a hazardous environment, potentially, and even transportation hubs. So these are where we're looking to you to help uncover these opportunities. So Nikki's got a poll question to put up. Why don't we put that up there? And so the question today is, how often does a panic alarm project at a large job site come across your sales pipeline? And pick the one that you would say is the closest answer.
I've got some responses coming in, Sandy. I'm just going to give them a moment and then I'll share the results with everybody.
Now, sometimes this might not be as frequent because a lot of people in the industry might not be aware that this capability in this cost-effective manner exists. But now that you know it does, you may be able to offer it more often.
All right, let me share the results here. Can you see that?
Yeah. Wow, I would say I'm pleasantly surprised. There's a fair amount of daily and weekly, mostly monthly. So, all right, terrific. I'll ask you guys a question regarding that coming up. And let's see, I got to. Okay, so let's talk about the locating methodologies, what they mean, and what Inovonics has done with them in the past up to today. So we're going to call them nearest repeater, thumbprinting, and beacon, also known as signpost. So nearest repeater, this started in when we really started getting into the senior living line of business back in 1996. The first locating site was in Grinnell, Iowa, where we deployed an old part number called it was the FA526 locator. And you would drop those in, whether it's a new or an existing installation, and it functions similar to a repeater, but what it would do is it would hear an unrepeated or first hop alarm signal. And then what it would do is transmit an extended length message heard by the software-based senior living head end. And that message was the pendant ID as well as its ID. And in order to dial down the defined location area, there was a potentiometer or a pot on there, and you could turn it so that you could essentially affect its hearing. So the advantages, I like to say advantages and challenges instead of pros and cons. The advantages is it did give a located zone, which could direct a response sooner, and you could drop it in using the existing repeaters and pendants. The challenges, not floor or room level, and quite a bit of testing labor because those pots weren't, very big, and there may be little differences in how that receive sensitivity was adjusted in concert with, the lay of the land at that site. So lots of testing labor, but it did work. And then when we introduced the high power repeater, we came out with the FA536. It had a stronger transmitted signal. But then when FA became obsolete and EchoStream was introduced over that transition period, we, in conjunction with our senior living partners, the concept of thumbprinting came to be, and the EchoStream repeaters relayed in first hop signal strength of a non-repeated alarm signal. So what we all figured out was if you have more repeaters and a transmitter is heard by multiple repeaters in a given location, those multiple first hop signal margins, I should say, from repeaters became a RF signature or profile or a thumbprint. So in this case, look at the pendant on the left. It's heard by repeaters A, B, and D. That's signal margins of 13, 35, and 20 respectively. So those IDs and numbers become that RF thumbprint. Same with the second pendant on the right, heard by B, C, E, and F at signal margins of 20, 16, 22, and 18 respectively. So the key here is for it to be heard by at least 3 or more repeaters. And the way this gets set up is you get the software running, you get all the repeaters in, then you take a pendant defined as your thumbprinter and walk around to every location and take a few samples. So you would go into, for example, room 101, activate the pendant a few times. Those signals are going to come in and you give them a name, room 101. Then you go do the same thing in room 102 and room 103 and 201, 202, 203, et cetera, until you thumbprinted the entire job site, creating a lookup table of your predefined thumbprints, which are locations. Then when the system is live and somebody activates their pendant, its RF profile will be recorded and then compared to your lookup, and then the software gives you the closest match. So that's how thumbprinting works. the advantage is there. Again, using the existing repeaters, you can get room and floor level resolution. This is still in service today. The challenges, a lot of extra repeaters, some accuracy concerns, especially because the thumbprints are based on signals taken at the time of installation. For the most part, those profiles are to a certain extent reproducible, but there is quite a bit of labor in thumbprinting and testing. And if there's a significant change to site configuration physically, you would have to redo some thumbprinting. But like I said, this is still used for the most part in our senior living line of business today. All right, beacon or signpost, as I like to call it, has a lot greater potential for accuracy. And we use the Inovonics 900 megahertz in concert with a secondary technology that more conducively stays in a space. Now, as we know, our 900 megahertz, it goes through wall after wall after wall, and it goes through floor after floor. And especially rooms next to each other, the signal is not as distinguishable with regard to signal strength. So you would use a secondary technology with a one-way link between the pendant and the locator or signpost in a given location. The first ones were done with infrared or IR. There was some work, I guess I would say some exploration with low frequency IR, or I'm sorry, low frequency RF. What we're doing today is with Bluetooth low energy, or BLE. So the pendant, well, the signpost itself, or as we call it, a locator, can either be receiving or transmitting. We'll get into that level of detail, but basically the advantages of the signpost methodology is it's highly accurate, easy to install. Some of the challenges would be you got to get power for the locators where they need to be. So we'll dive into this a wee bit more. I want to just take a quick detour to talk about our cloud-hosted software as a service, which is not new to Inovonics. We've been doing this in our sub-metering or non-life safety platform for a number of years. Our sub-metering platform, think of that as wireless water meters for apartments. And we've been serving up reads to the sub-metering industry. And this really has become the look and feel of the Inovonics software as a service platform. Some of the advantages of this type of system is when a capability is launched, it's available immediately. So we can get to market pretty quickly. And we are using this across our multiple lines of business. So when we make an improvement in one line of business, the other lines of business also benefit. That helps us be a better vendor, better manufacturer. But we will be doing this with enhanced messaging. So not just an alarm. In this case, the enhancement is going to be the location of the alarm, but also think about that central, the algorithm that resides on our central server. When there's a change or an update, it's automatically available. Everybody gets updated automatically without having to do anything. We're also able to capture sensor data and transmitter data. And again, that just helps us be a better manufacturer. I'm going to be showing you how our application online provides the ability to manage all of your job sites as your enterprise of installations. And that's where you do all your site setup. And you go to one place and you can do it from anywhere in the world. But also think about the raw data coming in from these pendants with potentially multiple sensors that we can interpret appropriate to the application and appropriate to the kind of user who is carrying that wireless device. So again, for what we're doing here with the locating, it's pretty much one sensor, which is the BLE for locating. And when the located alarms come in, There's probably going to be more than one because our BLE does go 50 to 100 feet. It's an OEM version of BLE. There's no pairing or anything, but it goes farther than, say, your Bluetooth headsets. But we've already started expanding our capability on the senior living line of business. Not only is there the BLE locating in there, but for fall detect, there's an accelerometer and a relative air pressure sensor, or a barometer. So looking into the future, when we expand this into security for things like man down, realistically sometime next year, we'll be able to interpret those raw data according to what's the user profile. And there can even be machine learning where that algorithm is learning new behavioral traits of those sensors. So for example, you can tell if somebody fell down hard, did they fall down and get up? Is a guard running? Is a guard in a fight? Is that guard running upstairs or running downstairs? Sorry, just had to go close my door really quick. Okay, so that's our cloud hosted software as a service. So you'll be seeing more and more of that from Inovonics over the coming months and years. Okay, back to our locator system, and how it works is somebody hits their pendant and it's going to transmit the Inovonics 900 megahertz along with the BLE message. And in every room or area, you're going to have a locator plugged in. It's going to hear the BLE message, and then it's going to retransmit out in Inovonics that extended length message that I talked about earlier, which would contain the ID of the pendant and the ID of the locator and the signal strength all together. Now, what's going to happen immediately is the on-site panel, like a Bosch panel or a Honeywell panel, for example, will hear the message, and that alarm will be processed and ideally communicated to whoever's going to respond, whether it's a system operator or a central station dispatcher, who would essentially ready themselves to affect the response. And then, I'd say a handful of seconds later, our server, it will have those BLE located messages. It will do a sort and give you the strongest one, and that will go to the integration destination, be it a central station or on-site IP-based application. And again, as I mentioned before, the panel will supervise the pendants on site for RF link, as well as things like low battery. All right, let's look at the components. So you've got the pendants, which have the BLE daughter board inside. And you can see the picture. That's the form factor that we're using right now. The locators, and I'll show you what those look like. The repeaters to cover the site, as you would expect. The gateway is what would be connected typically to a switch. You can go PoE, or you can plug it in. The application, I'll show you that a little bit, as well as the on-site alarm panel. As long as there's enough zones open for the pendants, for the number of pendants being used, you're good to go. And you can use any of our receivers as long as there's the capacity to supervise those pendants. And like I said, existing repeaters are perfectly fine if you're going into an existing job, or of course, if this is going to be a brand new job, you use the repeaters as you would expect. Here's what the locator looks like. It's going to hear the BLE or SSI is received signal strength, and then it retransmits that extended length message in echo stream. It does supervision well, I would say our application accomplishes supervision of the BLE and power. What's pictured there, you can see it's a flathead screw. It actually comes with a Torx T10 size, and it would just go into the outlet. you can screw it in the US. And for those of you in Canada, not sure if we can do that or not. There's a little bit of a debate on that. Technically, it might not be code, because in Canada, if there's a fire at an outlet, you're supposed to be able to kick the thing out of the outlet. Whereas in the States, we want you to go to the breaker box. That plastic, I think it could probably still be kicked out. That's never going to happen. This is such a low current draw device, and the line power is via transformer down to very low voltage. You can even put a clear plastic thermostat cover over the outlet. And so this is the version that we have now. The bottom picture is going to be more of a wall mount, more of a flush mount, especially for applications where there's a concern of ligature, and you would use a power supply to power one or more. So that's what the locators are. Gateway itself, there's a few different things under the hood here. There will be some backup communication capabilities coming in the future, such as cellular. But basically, this is what brings the located messages to our server. You can go PoE or use our standard, I believe it's a 14 volt AC transformer, or 12 to 16, somewhere in there. There's some onboard storage as well. So that's the gateway. So building out the rest of the system, you can see on this example, I've added the repeaters and the gateway. And as far as setting up the site and designing your locator layout, they can go one in every room, which is ideal. But there may be budget constraints as well. So you can see in these other locators with the sort of a blue dotted circles around them, where the locator represents an area or a small group of rooms as opposed to one room. For large areas, you might need more than one locator in there. Now there are there's a testing function, which I'll show you briefly in the application, so you can make sure that the locating is working accurately. And if you see any anomalies, you can move a locator to a different outlet just based on the lay of the land, and other anomalies based on how the user is wearing or holding their pendant. But we do want to make sure that there's enough locators. You don't want to have just like one or two on each floor, because then you're going to get errors. So the whole signposting methodology is based on lots of signposts so that you get good locating resolution and accuracy. And for setting up the site, many of you already have survey kits. That doesn't change because it's the EchoStream network. So that helps you understand how to deploy your repeaters and takes the guesswork out of how many you need and where they go. So that's the same survey process there. Let's talk about integrations. So where do these alarm messages go? So these are the integrations that exist now. Genetec Security Center is a good one. They've been a good integration partner with Inovonics for quite some time now. So the locator becomes a referenceable object in Security Center, meaning it can participate in their graphics mapping functionality. So not only are we telling you where the event is, but we're showing a system operator where it is. And then as a referenceable object, it can be associated with other objects in Security Center, such as a camera. We go into open options, DNA Fusion. That's an access control platform. Right now, the locators show up in the hardware tree for you open options folks. And the alarm event with the ID of the pendant and the locator show up in the alarm pane. And in a future rev, they're going to make create the ability for the locator to be a referenceable object. Other Acre-owned access control platforms such as RS2, those integrations are coming soon. SecureTech, the Wave, that is a system that I would put in a category that I call specialty platform. And in that box, there's the Inovonics receiver. There's two-way radio communication capability so that those messages of alarms can be delivered to responders carrying two-way radios. And of course, all of the processing power is inside that box. And there are other possibilities as well. So hopefully folks like, other folks in that category, such as Centurion by Response Tech, that's a good one, will jump on board and create that kind of an integration. Central stations right now, it's Rapid Response and Emergency 24. For new integrations, or our open API is MQTT based, message query telemetry transport. This is demand driven. So especially you folks who said you see this type of opportunity monthly, and especially for those of you who said weekly, let us know what kind of, what head end you would like to see us play into, and we can work with that head end provider and get that process going. All right, let's look at our application. These are just a couple of screenshots for your site setup. This is where you would do all your site configs for each site. You can also, you will define the admin role at your organization, and then they can create logins and passwords for other users restricted to just their site. So there's a tech login for all your sites. You can have end user read only or view only logins for just their site. So there's quite a bit of flexibility there. When you dive into this, there's a import export button, or buttons, I should say, that will allow you to very efficiently create a site config. So I'll show you that at the end after these next few slides, because I'll have to switch from PowerPoint to Excel to show you that. But this is where site config happens. View status means you can look at the health of the installation. So there's a number of utilities in there. There's some testing functionality where we have a testing function built in, or you could just kind of test on your own. You take a pendant. If this is connected to a central station, make sure the system is in test, so to speak. And also back in configure site, you can specify an email address as a secondary delivery of these alarms, which could go to maybe other responders or other end user folks. The import export for site setup, and again, this is just a snapshot. I'll give you more detail at the end, but we use Microsoft Excel. So when you are creating a site, you'll type in a minimal amount of information. You'll click on export. It'll give you a spreadsheet with all these tabs, and that's where you would populate the rest of the site config. And then when you're done, you import it and you're good to go. As far as dealer onboarding, we'll work with you to determine what parts you need and where you get them. We're going to give you training. Obviously, the training of the application would start with online training with our tech support, but also I'm guessing there will be one or two of us, maybe someone from engineering, as well as your territory Inovonics person, to be with you on site on your first installation. And we'll be happy to help you out with that. As well as maybe if you've got a good prospect, maybe we do a site visit early on, do a site survey, talk to the end user, understand what are their goals of their physical security plan, what are their policies and procedures, and making sure that this is indeed a good fit. We have a partner portal. There's the website, there's the password, include the spaces, it just works, and there's some materials in there for you to check out. And if you want to dive into this more, contact our tech support. We'd be happy to give you a login to our training sandbox, as we call it. And here is your territory map of Inovonics. This is on our website. So this is how you find out who your contact is. And there we are. So what I'm going to do is I'll stop sharing this, and then I'm going to share a different screen. And I love it when it works. Okay, so now you're looking at the actual Excel spreadsheet of a site config. So this first tab, this is just for reference, but we also do populate some cells with some documentation to guide you through this process. So here you give the site a name. The next tab is where you're going to choose the integration. In this case, it's Genetec Security Center. And you, whoops, integration, there we go. It's Genetec Security Center. Every one of these is going to have some kind of a username, password profile. And again, here's some documentation to guide you through how to populate those cells. Then you put in information about the gateway itself. There's a serial number and an authentication code and the part number. Buildings is just, this really carried over from our submetering where for garden style apartments, there's multiple buildings. If there's not multiple buildings, you would just give the site name as the building name. Then you add in all the pendants and, so if you got 20 pendants, you'll have 20 rows here. And in the columns, there's the pendant ID. All of our devices have their IDs on them. You put the part number in. You can give the pendant a name, Bob, Jane, Sally, Mr. Smith, etc. And then the test pendant, column D, those are all going to be false, except for the one pendant that you define as your tester. And that cell would be populated with the word true. And you add in your locators, same thing. And you can put them in, you can give them a building, well, you can say what building they are in. And then again, you give it a location name. If there's a locator in each and every room, it's okay to name the locator for the name of the room. If that locator represents an area or a small group of rooms, you don't want to mislead the responder to go just to one room where the locator is. So the location, instead of saying room 107, would be in or near room 107. So you're giving more clear instructions to the responder so that they know where to go look. Your repeaters, again, repeaters reside in buildings. They have an ID and you give it a name and you throw the part number in there. This tab gives you more reference information. The part numbers for the mobile duress pendants, they all begin with EN22. And then here's the help tab gives you some more documentation as far as how to set up your site config. So I believe that is that, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll even show myself today. Hello. All right. So Nikki, are there any? Oh, well, let's see if I can pull up chat.
You did get a few.
Or are there questions?
So your first question, Sandy, is do you have any low voltage beacons?
Do we have any low voltage beacons? Okay, so that was well, technically speaking, they're all low voltage. The one that plugs into an outlet, there is a transformer, it's stepping things down to about 5 volts inside. The ones that will be powered by a power supply, fully low voltage, as it were, which it would be more of a flush mount. I think that's going to be Q1 of next year, realistically, before those are in production.
Okay, great. Also, is there a possibility to get a configuration spreadsheet?
Yes, there is. One of our guys, one of our newer guys, Bill, has that, and we've adapted that to add more function to add the locators. And if I can pull this up really quick, I'll show you one that I'm working on. I think it'll be okay if I do that. Let me see, we're going to mobile duress. No, not that one. Give me a sec. And let me go back here and let me see if I can share that screen. Here's a site where we get a PDF of all the different floors. This site has 2 buildings and 4 floors on each building. and the dealer did a video design and he gave me this. So what you do is you use the snip tool on your computer, and then you basically cut and paste that picture. It makes you a PNG file, stick it into this spreadsheet, and then you can populate all kinds of Inovonics devices. And so that they pop, I added a glow color. So here's a repeater in red. These are the locators. And then what I did is each tab is a different floor layout. So yes, if you want this tool, we're happy to get it out to you. All right, that's
Okay.
enough of that.
All right, I've got a couple more questions for you. I know we're running a little tight on time here. So many of my customers have DMP panels. What are my options in that case?
Well, since the, oh God, what was that part number that went on a 472? They don't make those anymore. So if you want to have a DMP panel, be that on-site panel, supervising dependents, you would use our add-on receivers like an EN4232MR.
Okay. Let's see.
Will it use real-time maps? You know,
Yeah.
we are working on some functionality for that, so stay tuned. But for the most part, that would be something that is included in the integration. So that map functionality, like in Security Center or in an upcoming rev of DNA Fusion and those other Acre things, those you know, as long as those integrations allow the the locator to be a referenceable object, it would populate in the map. But let me answer the rest of that question. Real time, no. So this is not a tracker. This is only giving you the location when the user hits the pendant button. So I would call that a yes and a no.
All right, perfect. All right, well, I think that's actually all of our questions. I was kind of sorting through the chat earlier, but yeah, I think that was all the questions we had for you.
Right. If you would like my slide deck or Bill's tool, I've got a credit Bill, let me know. I'm Sandy at Inovonics.com or sandy.fisher at Inovonics.com. Bill is Bill Walker or B Walker. You know how to get a hold of us. All you got to do is ask, and we're happy to get you these resources.
Yeah, I can absolutely send a follow-up email after this, Sandy, so it's easy for everybody. And okay, since we don't have any more questions, I'm just going to pull our few winners for the gift cards for attending.
Cool.
Not anything fancy. I just printed out registration.
Is my name in there too?
No, your name's not in there. All right. All right, I'm going to do 3 of these, I think, actually. Okay, I have Tim Dawkins as one. Don Johnson from Camtech Inc. Ooh, one last one. And I have Edward Buckland. So I will go ahead and make sure I send all of those out to you. But thank you everybody for attending. If you have more questions, there will be a follow-up email after this webinar. You can simply click reply and we'll get you in touch with your regional sales manager. But otherwise, just thank you for taking the time today to log on. And thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone.